the suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
One of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Stoned Appetit with your host. As always, it's me, Kip. You know I like to do a lot of these interviews with Chris, but he's not with us today due to the day job. But luckily, we have a badass guest joining us today. We're going to be talking all things food, not only for the Denver area, but also for the Boulder area. We're going to dive into the little nitty-gritty of the common shared space of what the food hall is, as well as where it came from for the Denver community. And then we're going to wrap up the episode with a little bit of tomfoolery and casual conversation. Our guest today is the founder of the Half-Eaten Cookie Hospitality Group, the proprietor of 4 or 5 restaurants. I get confused going through my head. Mr. Bryan Dayton. Bryan, how are you, brother?
Good. Thanks for having me today. Great to see you.
Great to see you, too. It's been a hot minute since we've been able to kind of goof off in the shared spaces and talk about food and things. So I'm excited to be able to sit down with you today and shoot the shit.
Totally. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You say that now, but in about 40 minutes, you'll be like, Jesus Christ, get me out of here. But in the meantime, But in the meantime, we're going to shed some knowledge. Not only, as you know, the proprietor of Corrida, Oak, BELLOTA.
BELLOTA. Yep.
You said that when we were on the phone the other day. And then Melted Ice Cream. Am I missing one?
Melted and Brider here in Denver.
Brider.
And then we actually were fortunate enough to open up a small ramen restaurant up in Big Sky, Montana this winter. So,
look
crazy.
at you.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so we're going to ask that question later, but I feel like I'd be doing a disservice. Did you put it up in Montana so you could go ski up there?
Yeah, there's some selfish reasons.
Yeah,
too,
some business expense right off.
Warm bowls, good powder, So.
I love it. Well, you've had a knack for, right place, right time with how your business model has worked out up until the craziness of the pandemic. So we're going to dive into all that, and we're going to talk about the first one and how easy it was to open and how difficult it was to run 5 since then. But before we do that, we'd be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to our sponsors. We're right down here recording in the Rhino area. We're at the source, but our sponsors are right here in Rhino as well, and that's the friends over at Callie's Cannabis. Over at 31st and Larimer, they just took over Botanico organics, and so they have that new operation. They're growing their own flower here in town, family-run operation. I love their flower. I personally find it to be one of the better grown and sold commercially cannabis flowers in Denver, and luckily enough, it's right down there in the heart of the Rhino area, right there at 31st and Larimer. So go check them out. Tell them Stoned Appetit sent you. They won't give you a shit, but they have a great deal every single day of the week. You can check it out on their Instagram page at Shop Callies. That's SHOPPECALLIES. Shop Callies. They post them almost daily, as well as there's pictures of flower all over our pages. So go check it out. Fantastic cannabis, great family-run organization, and they pay for our bills, so y'all go help pay theirs. We're all in this together. All right, that was a good ad read. I didn't say the F word once, so I know our sponsors will be fired up. All right, Bryan, back to the nitty-gritty. We like to start every episode the same way, with the first question just kind of breaks the ice, gets the conversation flowing with the fantastic tequilas here at BELLOTA. Are you a transplant or a native to Denver?
I'm a transplant.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah. I moved here from Tennessee in 91. It was a ski bum of a winter park.
Oh, fuck yeah. Okay. And then just never wanted to leave?
Yeah, it bounced back and forth a little bit, but ended up in Boulder in 95 and pretty much been in Boulder off and on ever since. So
That's legit. Yeah. So was it so I tried to do the ski bum thing, got kicked out of college, applied, got approved or, got hired at A Basin. They were like, come on out. This was 2008. And my dad was like, the fuck you are. You're not getting kicked out of college and going to become a ski bum.
Right.
sure enough, he could stop me as long as he wanted, but I made it out a couple of years later. How old were you when you did the ski bum thing?
I was literally 18 years old. It was my first year out of high school, and I took a gap year before I started into school, and I worked on a small ranch in southeast Idaho, and I worked there until the wintertime and then came back here and got a job at, I actually applied at Steamboat, drove down to Winter Park. They hired me on the spot. I found a place to stay. I was bussing tables 2 days later.
What was that? So, I grew up skiing in Winter Park. We were driving out from Mississippi, long hours in a bus with the church group. What was the vibe? That was mid-2000s, no, 2000-ish. What was the vibe like in 91 in the mountain towns of Colorado?
It was awesome. It was definitely a lot more bright colors, the coming out of the 80s. A little more scarce. We were skiing a lot of moguls back then. It was a lot of fun, doing double daffies and what have you. But it was an awesome time, and I loved it. It was a great winter.
One of our spirit animals for the podcast was kind of in the same, I guess, age group as you in the Boulder, the Shane McConkey phase.
Yep.
Did you know McConkey? Did he have an influence on you? Like, man, we're going to go, balls to the walls, nuts to butts, let's fucking party. You never grow old.
We definitely, there was definitely an excess of partying back then, being 18 right out of high school. So, yeah, it's, we lived in like a really small place up in Grand Lake, and there was, lots of fake IDs and lots of illegal things going on, but, I wouldn't change it for the world, that's for sure.
And it gave you kind of the footpath to Colorado, which obviously, we're kind of in that same boat of once you get out here, you can see why it's so lovely.
100%.
You just stuck around. You're like, you know what? I'm planting my roots here.
Yep.
What was the theory or the process behind that? Because you're not skiing in restaurant, or you're not skiing in mountains for a living anymore.
Yeah, I'd always, when I grew up in Tennessee, I grew up, hiking the AT with my dad and camping all the time. I loved being in the mountains, and once I got out here, I knew I wanted to be, out west. And so, once I dove in, was here in 91, southeast Idaho again, off and on, and then moved back to Tennessee 92 through 95, and then in 95, bounced right back to Boulder. And was just I got to be out here. This is it.
So did you go to school, or were you working in a restaurant and you're like, this is my niche, this is my wave, I'm going to ride this?
Yeah, no.
How did you kind of find your the avenue or the lane that you're running in now?
Totally. No, I was right since I was 15, started working in restaurants, small town, washing dishes, washing lasagna plates at a local Italian restaurant in my hometown.
Been there, sister.
Yeah, it's good times, man.
I know that feeling. Shout out to Frattesi's in Ridgeland, Mississippi.
Right?
I was 14. She was like, bless your heart. Here's $19. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm rich.
Totally. Get the scraper out. And you're just like, oh, man, your knuckles getting beat up. It was brutal.
Those
steel wool.
Wool brushes.
Yeah,
wool brushes.
Steel wool. Yeah, it was insane, dude. And so... But so I'd always been in restaurants. When I worked at Mary Jane, was working in the cafeteria at Mary Jane, just kind of continued with that other than the small ranch work I did. And then when I went back, transferred to University of Tennessee, worked in the cafeteria on campus, got a job working off campus, and was continuing to work in restaurants. And then about my junior year, it was paying for my own school, working all the time. And I was like, what am I doing? I was in Mass Comm, and I was like, you know what? I'm moving back to Colorado. If school works out, and dropped out of college, moved back west, and never looked back. And
so you didn't finish school at Tennessee?
University of Tennessee, yeah. I dropped out my junior year.
Hell yeah.
So.
And you've made great strides, or pro moves only since then. But it seems like you have the lineage to go with the restaurant scene. So, they say you need to serve for, Denise posted the other day, serve for 1 week as a waiter or waitress, and you could kind of have a little more empathy in this world.
100%.
But also running an operation or a restaurant business, it's the Chick-fil-A model, not, we shouldn't say that, but you have to work the line. Know the dirty or the nitty gritty, so you can appreciate all aspects of it, and obviously grew up in it. So
100%.
How have we been where did we start in the restaurant world for Colorado? Was it a Boulder base? What was the first one?
So when I moved back to Boulder in 95, I started working at Juanita's Mexican restaurant, and I was 20 years old basically at that point. Got my first, I came on as a busboy. We didn't call them backweights. We were busboys. And then I met Tim Luca, who was the bartender there. He trained me up to be barback. And then a few months later, I turned 21 and got me behind the bar, and I started bartending. So that was my first foray. It was 95 through basically the end of '99 at Juanita's Mexican restaurant.
All right. So, that's some EXP right there.
Yeah, totally. It was awesome. So pretty, it was like, it was a rowdy room. We called it the Red Room where the bar was. It was all painted red, black ceiling. It was pretty dark, had a jukebox, listened to Hotel California more than I ever cared to, and little pool table. Yeah, it was a good time. And, people 3 deep. This is like late 90s, just everybody having a blast and just telling me how to be really fast, efficient. We did do fresh margaritas that we were using the Juanita Rita, doing lime juice, a little bit of agave, tequila, and that was it. It was like super sweet. And so just had like this really great, fun like experience being my first bartending job.
Okay, so was it just like a kind of work up the totem pole or the chain,
100%.
and then you were like, I could do this all on my own? Like,
yeah.
There's something we're missing here in Boulder. Like, how did you find yourself becoming a proprietor?
Yeah, I don't think it was that at that age I was that
no
bright
shit.
or intelligent.
But you're like, I could do this. I
was
love
like
this
3 shots.
gig.
I always knew, even prior to getting to about that time, getting to Juanita's when I was 20, I knew I wanted to have my own restaurant. It was definitely something
so
that
you knew
at
fairly
an early age. I just loved the hustle and bustle of it. I loved whether it was being in the dish pit or like the excitement of making people happy. I just loved like the pulse of the restaurant, and I knew I didn't get to open our first restaurant until 37, so I was a slow learner. It took me 17 years.
I think that's probably the smartest though, because then you were able to learn like the bumps and bruises through navigating, the positions and
totally.
the headaches of different scenes. 2017, 16?
Oh, no,
2012.
2010 was the first year. So
where did you get 37 years later?
No, I said 17 years later.
Oh, sorry, I was doing the math.
I was 37.
I was like, time out. I was like, I can't. I'm not a math guy. Shout out to our friends
37.
over at Cali's. They got my mind. And the fantastic tequila from Dona Loca downstairs. Shout out to Dana. Okay, so you just kind of lived the life up in the Boulder scene. Let's talk a little bit about Boulder. We were joking earlier that while it's considered like that hippie far left, it's a little bit conservative. How has the Boulder scene been? You've been up there now for 30 fucking years.
Yeah.
What's that vibe like from 91 to operating a business in 2019?
Wow, yeah.
We'll say pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
that's not
pre-pandemic.
fair.
Yeah, of course. It's Boulder's changed so much. From when I first got there in '95, and I like we were saying earlier, it does feel like it's gotten a little more conservative, maybe. I don't know
it's
if
like
conservative
that stuffing, like it's like they're the old guard of progressiveness. Or something
there's
like
no more
that.
mall crawl. There's like the rowdiness is still there, but it's in like little places. I'd love to see like some old school Boulder things, like like I said earlier. It's like I'd love to see Boulder be kind of like Austin, open up Pearl Street, be able to like walk around, have live music out, and just have it a little more like free flowing, and really kind of get back to its like hippie roots. Really, I think it'd be a really fantastic area for that. But it seems that we're kind of going the opposite direction in Boulder. And don't get me wrong, like my restaurants are very different than the restaurants
that
that
you just kind of described.
Yeah. Then what the restaurants like Juanita's Mexican restaurant, which was the oldest standing Mexican restaurant in Boulder forever, was very laid back to like compared to what we do at Oak or Corrida, which is definitely more, a little more upscale and a different vibe. So, I've been part of that change too, and that's also in some ways, because I love being in Boulder, but also in like ways of trying to survive in the marketplace, right? Because your prices are so expensive.
Yeah, like you've seen, and we were actually up in Boulder. We camped in Nederland. For those that listen to old episodes, it was a fucking nightmare. But Boulder, like it is. Like there's a couple of spots the old guard is kind of having either been priced out because of whether it be commercialism and stuffiness. Like you would never, like the 29th Street Mall and all of those things. You're starting to see more of the Shake Shacks and less of, like Joe's and Jane's restaurants and things of that nature. But at the same time, you have to have a price. You can't do $3 fucking burritos and make a living in Boulder. So you have to like kind of play the happy median. So you can have, post-graduation dinner at a place like yours, or you could host just the average Boulder resident as well. So there is a happy median to juggle both
100%.
Because those students are fucking nuts up there. I mean, we all saw those parties like that.
Oh my
first
God.
one.